is this the kind of project that responds well in a rising bullion environment, or for people who are wondering about that, if you could comment there?
Absolutely. EMX, which is our trading symbol both in Canada and in New York, is heavily leveraged to the metals prices.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And today, fortunate to be joined by a good friend of mine who runs or is a part of EMX Royalty, probably runs it in the background, keeps the show going together. But that is Scott Close of EMX. And Scott, for folks who might be new to the company, I was wondering if you could give a rundown of the business and what folks would be looking at and what kind of investment it is.
Well, we're a royalty company, but we subscribe to a different royalty business model than the conventional business model. The conventional royalty business model is to simply write big checks and oftentimes borrow substantial amounts of money in order to go out and purchase royalties. We largely grow our royalty portfolio organically through prospect generation, or what we call royalty generation. So we go out and we acquire the prospective mineral real estate around the globe, do some basic inexpensive geological explorations on those properties, lend value to them, and then find partners to purchase those properties. When they buy those properties, we hold back a royalty on them. And then as that property advances, we're collecting various fees from our partners on those properties. There'd be a fee to get into the property when we initially sell that to the partner. Then there would be annual fees and milestone fees. And then, of course, production royalties should that property go into production in the future. So we largely grow our royalty portfolio through that organic process, and then we supplement our organically derived portfolio with royalty acquisitions when we can find those at favorable pricing valuations, but that's become pretty difficult to do. And then the third leg of our business model is strategic investment. So if we find a company out there with an asset in it that we think represents exceptional value and is grossly underrealized in the market, we may invest in that company directly. A great example of that was our Malmish investment, which is a massive gold and copper discovery in Far East Russia that we put in over the course of 7 years. We invested $13 million into that. And then when we were able to monetize that investment, that dropped $69 million into our treasury. So we take a three-pronged approach to our business model there, Chris.
Yeah, that makes sense, Scott. And maybe you could talk about the difference in risk versus a traditional miner. And obviously, your model is a bit different. So for investors who are looking at projects like this, maybe just compare what EMX does kind of to a traditional miner and how the risks of the two types of businesses are a little bit different.
Yeah, so mining is fraught with a long list of risk. So so there's the risk during the development stage that Jays, it's tough to cover all the bases there. It's a difficult road to get things into production, all of the engineering and financial challenges that you are confronted with, all of the regulatory risk, the social risk, the environmental risk. And then once you start producing, it's also fraught with a lot of risk also. So you have commodity pricing risk. So say if you open a copper mine and you base your copper mine on $2 a pound copper, and then copper is trading at $1.50, well, then you have a problem. And then you have labor risk. If you have strikes, you can have geopolitical risk. If a country decides that they're going to nationalize assets, then there's certainly that risk. There's environmental risk. If you have a tailings dam fail, God forbid, or other potential things that can happen out there. Those can be enormous problems. You can have social risk. People decide that they don't want mining in their backyard and all the benefits that it can provide for a community and all the prosperity can lend to it. Nonetheless, there's social risk out there. There's commodity pricing risk, which I just discussed. There's metallurgical risk, where as you get deeper in the deposit, the metallurgy of the mineralization changes, so your processing has to change. And it goes on. So mining is a very difficult business that is capital intensive and fraught with a long litany of risk.
Yeah, it certainly is. And obviously, we've seen in response to coronavirus, a lot of mining get shut down. So, like you point out, there are a lot of risks in there. And perhaps for folks who might be a little newer to EMX, what would you say is when you wake up or as a company, what specifically is it, just identifying the value in projects, or what is it that basically when you guys do X well, that makes the company go well?
When we find values that create when we find assets out there that create value for the company. So if we identify a property out there that has significant geologic merit, and we're able to partner that off with somebody who can advance that quickly, that would lend great value to the company. Or we are able to find a strategic investment or a royalty that we can buy that would provide us with cash flow and that is highly accretive to the company and our shareholders.
Which makes sense. And I know you have David Cole, who is the CEO of EMX. And perhaps you could just let folks know what it is that David does well, and essentially of all the different companies out there, why someone would be well suited to put their money into EMX and under David's leadership.
Well, Dave's kind of an extraordinary guy. Not only is he a very astute and experienced geologist, he worked for Newmont Mining for 18 years all over the world, but he's a very astute and shrewd businessman. And as probably a lot of your listeners out there realize, those two things do not commonly come together in one personality, but they certainly have in Dave. And Dave also surrounds himself by very smart people. He only hires the best people that are available in the industry out there. He believes that if you hire mediocre people, then you end up with mediocre results, and he's certainly not interested in mediocre results.
Yeah, that certainly does make a lot of sense. And in my time in the mining industry, I would say the most consistent answer of what makes a project work is the people you have running it. Obviously, David's hiring great people. He brought you on board, Scott. So
that's absolutely right. I can't think of a better endorsement than that.
Yeah, I mean, it checks out. But in all seriousness, in the conferences I've gone to the last couple years, our good friend Maurice Jackson of Proven and Probable first introduced me to David. Then I got to know you, and you guys have quite a positive reputation out there in the community. And perhaps just in wrapping this segment up, if you could let folks know how to reach you guys, whether it's the website or the phone, or if people are looking for good projects, how could they find out more?
Well, our website is simply emxroyalty.com. That's easy enough. And our phone number here at our head technical offices in Littleton, Colorado is 303-973-8585. And if you have any questions on the investment, you're certainly welcome to call me here at the office. And if you're looking for projects, and we have a basket of projects around the globe in very favorable jurisdictions, primarily Western US and in Scandinavia, primarily in copper, gold, and polymetallics, give me a call and I will make sure that I put you in contact with the appropriate personnel in the company.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. And actually, while you were saying it, I did have one more question I think folks would love to hear your answer to. Obviously, a lot of the people who watch my show are expecting higher gold and silver prices. Scott, I know you've heard me talk about silver skyrocketing enough, but perhaps just if you could give a brief overview of should that manifest and we do have rising bullion prices as the Fed is printing 600 billion per week now. Is this the kind of project that responds well in a rising bullion environment, or for people who are wondering about that, if you could comment there?
Absolutely. EMX, which is our trading symbol both in Canada and in New York, is heavily leveraged to the metals prices. So, and the way that dynamic actually works out, Chris, is say the cutoff grade on a gold deposit is a half an ounce, or I'm sorry, a half a gram per ton, okay, at $1,500 gold. If gold goes to $2,000, then the cutoff grade is lowered, so it gets lowered to 0.3 grams. Not only would they be mining more gold, but we would be realizing more dollars per ounce from that. And of course, that translates into silver and copper and all of the other metallic commodities. So yes, as the price of metals, particularly precious metals, increases, and I fully expect that to happen in these very tumultuous times, that would certainly be realized in our share price.
Well, I appreciate that, Scott. Always good to hear, especially for us folks who are expecting higher bullion prices. Again, folks, the contact information in the description below. Scott, appreciate you joining me. We'll look forward to doing this again soon.
It's my pleasure.